Let's take a look at 80 different Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum Pokemon secrets, Easter eggs, facts, and details you may or may not know about. Arceus was never released. See, the Azure Flute was unused in Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum. Event distributions of Arceus having all 3 main legendary signature moves did happen though in November of 2009, but the regular Arceus though using the Azure Flute was never actually accessible. It was only given through a trade. If you guys didn't know this, but Registeel's sprite had to be changed in Western releases of Pokemon. The reason for this was that the Japanese sprite kind of resembled a specific salute that we don't really want to go into, but you catch the drift, so yeah. Another detail is that Diamond and Pearl were the last games to feature gambling in the West. The South Korean versions didn't have slot machines, and Platinum removed them in the West afterwards as well. So yeah, the European versions of these games basically removed the game corner, and that's why we haven't really seen the game corner since. I do hope they replace it with like a gaming arcade instead, which would be really fun. The levels of the Elite Four were actually reduced in Platinum to essentially reduce grinding that was necessary on the Victory Road. See, the original Gen 4 games were notorious for being slow surfing, slow HP bars, etc. And the fact that you arrived at a level 60 Elite Four with a bunch of level 40 Pokemon really didn't help. So Platinum fixed all of these pacing issues by simply nerfing them. Draco Meteor was actually named by Pokemon fans. See, Kurokuro Magazine, which is a massive magazine within Japan, specifically for video games, ran a contest for readers to name a future Pokemon move. The winner ended up being Meteor Shower, the Japanese name, but that also contained the word for Ryu, Dragon, which thus far ended up becoming Draco Meteor, which is what the community essentially named it. Acid Rain. Yep, I'm not really sure about this one, but basically there is a glitch in Pokemon Platinum, but it also exists in Heart Gold and Soul Silver. Not sure why it's in those. It's probably because they're based on the same engine. But if a Pokemon is knocked out by Pursuit while switching out with any weather effect excluding Rain being active, all weathers get triggered at once and will stay until the end of the battle. Interestingly though, Fog, Sun, and Rain hurt the Pokemon after they trigger now, giving it the name Acid Rain. Did you guys know that Team Galactic actually cheats? What do we mean by this? Well, see, the commanders will use Pokemon below evolution level. For example, Mars uses a level 18 Purugly, which evolves at level 38. Jupiter uses a level 20 Skuntank, which evolves at level 34. And yeah, it's just a weird one. Why did they get to cheat and have them unevolved, or rather evolved, at lower levels? Did you guys know that this one NPC named Interviewer Roxy was actually named after early Let's Player by the name of Choro Kojo? But he was part of the forum website known as Something Awful Forums, where the player named Roxy used a whooper, and the Interviewer Roxy in the game also used a whooper, which is kind of interesting. The lead translator of Pokemon Diamond and Pearl, Nobu Ogasawara, was actually a user of said forum and wanted to include the Let's Player as an homage. In the Japanese version of Pokemon Diamond, you can actually surf through the door behind Elite Four Aaron, and this will allow you to basically skip a bunch of stuff, or you can actually use it to essentially get into what's called the Void. This space is useful if you want to catch Darkrai, Shaman, and other event Pokemon that necessarily maybe didn't have their specific items released by Nintendo, Game Freak, and the Pokemon Company. And basically, this weird little glitch ended up also returning in Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. Speaking of the Void glitch in Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum, it basically allowed you to do all sorts of messed up stuff. Think of it as the Missing No of Gen 4, with Missing No, of course, from Gen 1 being a glitch that would cause a lot of weird shit to happen. But how can it be triggered? Well, basically, it was triggered by wiggling between 2 loading lines with a bike. Loading lines being the lines that intersect between different tiles. Now, if you perform a set of orders or steps within the Void, you can get hidden event Pokemon, like I mentioned, Shaman, Darkrai, and even Arceus, without the event items. Even today, people are still finding out new ways to use the Void on a regular basis. Like, the Void is still usable till today, never was fixed up because we didn't get patches back in the day for Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum. They never gave out those. But in regards to the Void glitch, it even returned in Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, which is crazy to me. If you guys didn't know, Pulseman was actually one of Game Freak, the company that makes Pokemon's earliest games. Now, Pulseman had an antagonist which was called the Galaxy Gang, or they were called the Galaxy Gang. See, Team Galactic is a complete reference to that. Their Japanese name is also Galaxy Gang. So yeah, they just used one of their old inspirations again. This is a super small one, but did you guys know that Diamond and Pearl were the first games where the item names were not displayed fully capitalized? Diamond and Pearl were also the first games where the starter Pokemon were able to have all of them fully evolved into dual types, and they also had a reversed effectiveness. So if you guys want to understand what I mean by that, imagine that normally Infernape, for example, would be strong against a Torterra, but because of Torterra's secondary typing, it's actually strong against Infernape. So you get the drift. They're basically inverted on each other. One of their typings was strong, while the other one was weak. There was actually a really cool system that existed for these games back then. See, different Pokemon encounters based on what Game Boy game you had in the cartridge slot while playing on the original Nintendo DS would change what Pokemon you could encounter in Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum. Of course, this wasn't possible if you had a Nintendo DSi, which lacked the Game Boy GBA slot for you to put your games in. But with the dual slot mode, you were able to put your accessories in or put your other games in, and this will allow you to catch specific Pokemon. This, in my opinion, is really freaking cool, and I really enjoyed it. I do think they should bring this kind of stuff back more often, and they do in most recent games. If you have save files, they will give you access to special Pokemon. In this case, if you guys had Pokemon Ruby inside of it, you could either get Seedot, Nuzleaf, Mawile, Zangoose, and Solrock. If you had Sapphire, you could get Lotad, Lombre, Sableye, Seviper, Lunatone, and if you had Fire Red and Leaf Green, you could get either for Fire Red, Caterpie, Metapod, Ekans, Arbok, Growlithe, and Elekid, and for Leaf Green, it would be Weedle, Kakuna, Sandshrew, Sandslash, Vulpix, and Magby. Finally, there was of course also Emerald, where you could get Teddiursa, Ursaring, Pineco, Gligar, and Shuckle. And then of course, if you had multiple different generation games, like this was a mix of them, so if you had Fire Red, Leaf Green, Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald, you get Haunter and Gengar in the old Chateau, and if you had, for example, Fire Red, Leaf Green, and Emerald, you get Staravia and Bibarel at Lake Verity, which was very specific. And of course, not all of these would work for Platinum. Platinum kind of had a few of them that didn't work for it, like for example, Magby from Leaf Green was not possible to get in Platinum version. After beating Giratina in Turnback Cave during Diamond and Pearl, you actually have something interesting that happens. If you return back to the location where you beat it, there will be items. But in Pokemon Platinum version, you would specifically find the Grecius Orb here. And in Diamond and Pearl, Reaper Cloth, Rare Bone, and Stardust, depending on how fast you are when you get here. But Diamond and Pearl were also pretty amazing, because this is where they introduced the birthday message from Lucas or Dawn, depending on what you played. So basically, these are the first ever games to implement this feature, where after beating the Elite Four, Dawn and Lucas will ask you if it's your birthday, and if you say yes, they say happy birthday in return, which is really cool, and this ended up becoming a thing that we have in all the Pokemon games now, especially when you go to Pokemon centers. Inside the old Chateau, there are two ghosts. Now, we don't have a full explanation for what their deal is, though we do have further details in maybe other games, but in this case, the girl and the butler will appear. They're both ghosts, none of them speak, and there's not really an explanation for what the deal is with them. There are some theories as to what the concept behind them is, and they did actually make an animated Pokemon short where they specifically showed, I think Gardenia or someone like that, actually going to this location and checking it out during an animated sequence. If you guys know more about it, you can share in the comment section down below. Now, Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum, these games were all filled to the brim with a lot of bugs and glitches, and there is an interesting one. See, you can actually use the Pal Park specifically to transfer your Pokemon from the GBA cartridge, which we've already spoken about before, but there is a limit on how many you can do per day. So, there is a way to actually do this by fast-forwarding and essentially going into your DS setting and then setting your day to a different day, and then having a different GBA Gen 3 game inserted into your console. Before starting the game, you reinsert the cartridge you want to transfer from, and then you can basically bypass the check that's being made by the game to check if you're only transferring one per day. So essentially, it's a way to skip through and glitch out the game, allowing you to transfer all the Pokemon from the original Game Boy Advance games directly without any hiccups. The mystery gift feature is an interesting one. See, back then you had to unlock it via a secret inside of Jubileaf TV. Here you talk to the producer on the 3rd floor, and if you insert the word "everyone happy," the mystery gift feature will be unlocked inside your menu. Nowadays, we don't really need to do this, it's just automatically usually there. It's just a standard in Pokemon, but back then you had to do a little bit of extra work for it. Then we also have the secret PC wallpapers. You see, every Pokemon game has a PC which you can check to get your Pokemon from, but there was a specific thing added inside of these specific games, which was custom wallpapers. And these were all secret, and the only way to get them is to talk to that same producer from Jubileaf TV, but you gotta give them different answers, and the answers will also depend on your trainer ID. So, to find out the different codes, there is a website that actually writes down all of them, so in case you don't know what you're looking for, there's an easy way to figure out exactly which ones you will get. Based on what version you have and what trainer ID you have, you can get one of many, like for example, there's a Ho-Oh-Lugia one, there's also just one of all the starters from Gen 2, and there's just a lot of different things that you can get, especially in Heart Gold, Soul Silver, but in Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum, you also have access to other things like a Krogunk, a picture of the original Gen 1 house, and just a lot of things like that. By now, most of you guys have probably seen this, but January the 12th is a special weather pattern day. Diamond Dust in Snow Point City will occur, and this is because of the birthday of Junichi Masuda. More dates have this snow pattern, especially launch dates of older games, but January 12th is the earliest, and Diamond Dust also returned, of course, in BDSP, and also most recently in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, as of me recording this video. Now, this is a small one, but you were actually never able to get Shaman's Sky form or Giratina's Origin form in Diamond and Pearl. This is because both forms were only ever introduced in Platinum, and there is no data for them at all in Diamond and Pearl. So Pokemon Platinum version actually reversed the process to receive the Regis. See, in Diamond and Pearl, you transfer Regis from older games, and then you can go to Snowpoint Temple to catch Regigigas. But in Platinum, you instead receive a event Regigigas via the, mystery gift feature, then secret caves throughout the region will open up. Regigigas was a promotional event for Giratina and the Sky Warrior movie. Did I just say Sky? Then we have, of course, the very famous Pomeg Berry glitch. So, what happens here is, if you're using a Pomeg Berry in a Pokemon that only has 1 or 2 HP less, you can essentially create a glitch resulting in said Pokemon now having 65,535 HP. It, of course, can't be used online and will be deleted, but it does add for a moment where you can essentially exploit the game quite extensively. A super random and just odd fact, but did you guys know that Shaman's Seabreak path is apparently the longest straight line path in all of Pokemon? At least in the old games. I don't really know how this works with Scarlet and Violet, but in terms of straight lines, Shaman's Seabreak path is the longest one. If you put a Pokemon in one box and then put an egg in the adjacent box in the exact same position, the stats of the eggs will be revealed. This actually saves time for breeding and or hatching Pokemon and is a common thing used. See, receiving Manaphy back in the day, as opposed to, let's say, Legends Arceus, that game just has you able to get it at the post-game, but in specifically Diamond, Pearl, Platinum, and these games, the only way to get it is by having a spin-off game, specifically Pokemon Ranger. Only one Manaphy egg can be received per copy of Pokemon Ranger by transferring, and then restarting the Ranger game won't respawn the egg. There is a switch within the game's code that only allows for one egg no matter what, which results in one of the rarest legitimate shinies of all time if you're able to get it, excluding, of course, exploits and glitches. But yes, if you don't have a brand new copy of Pokemon Rangers, like brand spanking new, which has never been touched before, you can never get this Manaphy ever again if it's already been used by someone else. Did you guys know that there are different levels to specifically the Pokemon Trainer cards? See, different levels will allow for different things. The Black Trainer card is 5 stars, and to do this, basically you need to do one of the following things. Beat the Elite Four, winning all the Master Rank contests, complete the National Dex, 100 consecutive wins in the Battle Tower, and receive a Platinum level Underground flag. So basically, do all the post-game stuff and you can get the Black Trainer card. Now, most people are not insane enough to do any of this shit, except for my friend, Toyoko, who wrote the script for this video. He's apparently insane enough to fucking do this. Did you guys know that the bike racks actually work in the game? Interacting with bike racks makes your character hop on a bike, which is super random, but yeah, you first have to have a bike to begin with. Did you guys know that in Gen 4 double battles, by pressing start to display HP, you can see them in numbers whilst battling? Otherwise, exact HP stats are only visible in the summary screen. So yeah, kind of a cool little detail that I didn't even know about. Did you guys know there is a cool little Easter egg using the calculator app in the Pocket? I know, very specific, but it is pretty cool. See, if you put in an equation that will result in the Pokedex number of a said Pokemon, which you've already seen in your Pokedex, it will actually play that Pokemon's cry, which I think is a cool little detail. See, if you actually go and use U-turn while holding a choice item, and then you switch into another Pokemon that also knows U-turn, a glitch can be triggered. only U-turn can be used, as if the new Pokemon was holding a choice item as well and already used U-turn. It's a bit wacky, but it is a strange glitch. The Spiritomb factor. For those of you guys who don't know, to catch Spiritomb back in the day is the same as you do it nowadays. It requires you to interact with 32 real players in the Underground. Specifically, the Underground was a feature added in Diamond and Pearl and returned later in, BDSP as well. But basically, you have to make sure you interact with other real players down there, 32 to be exact, and they cannot be NPCs. You can cheese it by talking to a friend and backing out of the dungeon, and then going back in again and repeating this 32 times to unlock this Spiritomb event. There's an exclusive berry access from a NPC in Platinum. See, in Pastoria City, there's a random guy that will give you, or random girl, doesn't really matter, will give you one random berry per day, including damage-reducing berries. These berries can be either rare or just common ones, but basically, it is a completely exclusive thing to Pokemon Platinum, so most Diamond and Pearl players who never played Platinum might have missed out on this. So you guys may know there are different capsule stickers for the Pokeballs that you use in Diamond and Pearl. Well, guess what? The specific ones for the question mark and exclamation mark can be obtained from a boy in Salacion Town after acquiring Unown, question mark, and exclamation mark. You guys already know the unknowns have different forms to them. However, to get these, all other 24 unknowns have to be caught beforehand. Then this chunky guy finishes the tunnel from Veilstone to the upper part of the Unknown Cave, where the question mark and the exclamation mark can be caught inside of. In Pokemon Platinum version, there's a second Regigigas apart from the event-required one to unlock the other Regis. See, this works the same as in Diamond and Pearl. You obtain the Regis, Regigigas will be in the Snowpoint Temple, lowest catchable legendary, which will be at level 1 in Platinum only. This isn't exclusive to Japanese Pokemon Platinum, but apparently it allowed for email notifications over the GTS online trades. This was later downgraded to notifications in the Wii message board, but it's kind of cool to imagine that if you got a GTS online trade offer or something, you'd essentially have an email sent to you. It's so random, but kind of a cool little thing. Did you guys know that the first rival battle in Diamond and Pearl was actually the first ever time where the rival starter wasn't at level 5, which is, I guess, interesting? Now, apparently, due to the physical and special split that occurred, every single Dark-type attacking move got their attributes changed. All Dark-type moves were special before Gen 4. Now, every single pre-existing Dark-type move was physical. Bite got its category changed twice as the only move ever. It actually went from physical in Gen 1 due to being a normal-type move to being a special due to being changed to Dark-type, and then back to physical due to their physical special split of Gen 4. I don't know, man. If you're Bite, you gotta have a straight-up whiplash. For unknown reasons, apparently the Everstone, which is used to prevent Pokemon from evolving, does not actually prevent Kadabra from doing so, because it will still evolve into Alakazam whilst traded in all Gen 4 games. It has never been fixed throughout all of Gen 4, which is kind of a strange oversight. In Pokemon Diamond and Pearl, only 14 Pokemon could have foreign dex entries displayed in German, English, French, Italian, Spanish, and Japanese. These Pokemon were Ekans, Pikachu, Psyduck, Ponyta, Staryu, Magikarp, Wobbuffet, Heracross, Sneasel, Teddiursa, Houndour, Wingull, Slakoth, and Roselia. And in Pokemon Platinum in particular, all 493 Pokemon had them. But yeah, it's a bit of a weird one, but I guess if you wanted to see the German Magikarp inside of a Japanese Pokemon game, that's a possibility. Now, interestingly, the guy who actually unlocks the ability to see these other, if you want to call them, I guess, dex entries from different countries, the NPC who unlocks this is called the Meister, and he trades you a German Magikarp for a Finneon. In the German version, his name is the Master, and he trades an English Magikarp instead. Meister, of course, is obviously the German for Master, which, I mean, it's not that crazy to figure out. Interestingly, Route 213 can have some really peculiar weather effects tied to specific days of the year. On January 24th, March 13th, May 11th, July 11th, August 9th, August 20th, October 18th, November 10th, December 2nd, December 31st, it rains, while on January 5th, February 15th, February 29th, April 15th and 30th, Platinum only, June 15th, July 26th, September 2nd, September 13th, October 3rd, and December 25th, the weather is cloudy, which has no in-battle actual effects. Now, in this generation of Pokemon games, Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum, if a Pokemon is about 7/8 of the way to its next level, its Pokeball on the battle interface will actually shake from time to time to kind of indicate that the Pokemon is close to leveling up, which is really freaking cool, and I don't really know. Did you guys know that there's actually some slight differences that appear in Pokemon Diamond, Pokemon Pearl, and Pokemon Platinum in this particular location? This is, of course, up when you are dealing with the legendaries, and as you guys can see, there are some minor differences that will happen. There will be a few less pillars depending on the game you're playing. There will be some changes in the locations of pillars, like in Diamond, where the pillars are a bit few more on the left side, whereas in Pearl, there's a few less. Overall, there are a few small differences between them. If the climax against Team Galactic on Spear Pillar happens on a Friday, Drifloon will actually appear in during the cutscene preceding the Palkia battle. This is because when the camera pans by the Valley Windworks, it is briefly shown, as normally on Fridays is when it does appear as a static overworld event in this particular area. Pokemon Diamond and Pearl are actually the first core series Pokemon games that required a file deletion before a new game could be started. Previously, all you had to do was start a new game and a save would be created, which would overwrite the old file. But they ended up doing something different. Here, there's a safety switch that needs to be actually changed, which requires a key combination for the deletion of your original save file, which is a bit odd. Did you guys know if a Pokemon using Choice Band, Choice Specs, or Choice Scarf uses the move Pursuit on a Pokemon that switches out, they can oddly choose a different move on the next turn. Contrary to the function of the item, it is then thrown back to the U-turn situation. So basically, if you choice Pursuited, you either get the cause of the glitch, which is this glitch occurs when a Pokemon using Pursuit has a choice item equipped and the opponent's Pokemon switches out, and the effect of it being the choiced Pokemon is now locked into Pursuit and may choose another move the next turn, and the only games with this, specifically affects is Japanese Diamond and Japanese Pearl. On the southern part of Route 212, it's usually rainy, but on January 5th, June 8th, June 29th, September 2nd, September 29th, and December 24th, as well as December 31st, there'll be a thunderstorm, while on May 1st in Diamond and Pearl and April 30th in Platinum, no rain will be present, although the weather will still be cloudy. Route 216 usually has snowy weather, which basically translates to hail when you're in battle, but on specific days of the year, the overworld weather changes. So January 12th, it will actually change to light snow, while on February 27th, 29th, and September 11th, and October 4th, October 14th, October 29th, November 22nd, December 26th, and December 31st, it will be hit with intense blizzards, which is pretty interesting. And the final one when we're talking about specifically weather is that Acuity Lakefront is another location with a peculiar weather at specific times of the year situation. While the weather in this area is normally a hailstorm, on January 1st and 12th, February 27th, 29th, August 7th, September 10th, October 21st, November 24th, December 23rd, there will be light snow instead. And one of those days, specifically January 12th, it will line up with the light snow being present on the connecting Route 216 as well. So a little bit of an odd one, but there are some weather interesting changes that happen in these games. Now, if you stand behind the Krogunk wall in Pastoria City, there's actually a chance that a Krogunk will walk by you and kind of laugh at you or smirk at you. I don't really know what to call it, but it's a random little event. North of Sunny Shore, Jasmine appears from Pokemon Gold, Silver, and Crystal. She will tell you that she cannot allow you to pass without beating the gym, referring to the lighthouse being just like the one in her hometown, where you originally found her and had to deliver the medicine secret potion to her for the sparkling lighthouse sick Pokemon, Amphi or Ampharos. Also, upon meeting her, she asks you if you know the Johto region. Then she says she wishes you knew how nice it was. You can also see her in these super contests with her trusty Steelix from Gold, Silver, Crystal, which she decided to name Rusty. She can also be spotted in the audience during contests, but the biggest part about this is that she was a straight up hint to the upcoming games at the time, Heart Gold, Soul Silver, the remakes of Gold and Silver. There is a reference to the Beatles and Green Day, so these are both bands, but once you get to the Iron Islands with Riley, there will be a construction worker who's looking for a battle. Now, before the battle engages, he will say, "The working class hero says hi." This is a reference to the Beatles and Green Day's American Idol rendition of it, the song, "A working class hero is something to feel." There's a cool little Easter egg or a little tiny thing that can happen in the, credit scene. In this case, firstly, you gotta defeat all the Elite Four Pokemon, champions and all that kind of stuff. And then when your character is riding on the bike in the daytime in the background during the credits, you can actually look at the sky and one of the clouds has two dots on it. And when the next scene comes along, it's the same one, but the cloud has changed shape and is now in the shape of a Pikachu face. Now, entrances and exits from cities in these games are shown by these hallways. Now, these hallways often do contain some NPCs or non-playable characters. In the hallway to the right of Canalave City, there is a guard who will tell you he is thirsty. However, bringing him a drink or any other item will not change that. This is just a reference to the original Pokemon games in which the player had to give lemonade to a thirsty guard in order to access Saffron City. There's a cool little reference to Kirby in Salacion Town. Basically, at the Lost Tower on the 3rd floor, there's a guy named Kirby using a Cleffa, which is a small little pink ball. There might have been another small hint towards Heart Gold Soul Silver all the way back in Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum. See, if you entered into Pokemon Centers, the actual Pokeball in the middle of the room was colored gold and silver, which, I mean, could be just far-fetched, but at least I think it was a reference. Alongside Team Galactic, Rotom is presumably a reference to Pulseman himself, which is a character that was of course created by Game Freak. Now, similar in design they are, but also Cyrus keeps mentioning and interacting with Rotom throughout all games he appears in, implying that Team Galactic and Rotom are deeply connected, just like Pulseman and the Galactic Gang from that original game from Game Freak. Now, did you guys know that Chatot's signature move, Chatter, could record your own voice? Now, it could basically be done and then increase in power depending on how loud your recording was. This was later removed due to the ability to yell slurs at people online, which, yeah, maybe that wasn't really the best idea. Porygon Z is a corrupted data version of Porygon 2, but its Pokédex entry says that it was made to investigate alternate dimensions. This is why the item to evolve it, the dubious disc, is located at Team Galactic's HQ, since they have a big interest in alternate dimensions. Interestingly enough, there's actually a second hidden keystone which you guys can find in the Gen 4 games, which of course is needed if you want to get your hands on Spiritomb. But here's the thing, if you surf in the little pond at the bottom of the town, specifically back at home, there is a left kind of area on the edge where you can talk to the tree on the left and you'll receive an odd keystone, which means there's 2 odd keystones in the overworld and an unlimited keystones in the underground, depending on how lucky you get. In the mansion, there's a statue usually protected by a guard who tells you that you cannot touch it. However, if you set your system's time to 12 p.m. and then head to the room again, you will see that there's no guard around this time. It's only you and the statue there, and you can touch it if you dare to do so. You better be prepared for something amazing to happen. Manaphy will jump out. There's a statue and no, nothing. It's just a little thing with no meaning, which is supposed to make you just look at it. But yeah, that's it. The statue doesn't do shit. Did you guys know that the encounter rate of rare Pokemon are increased by 5% on specific global holidays in the game? And these days hold some significance. Likewise, the encounter rates are decreased by a whole 10% on dates of various tragedies that took place. Like, for example, 9/11 and the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Those dates will specifically have lower encounter rates, whereas holidays like Christmas, etc. will have higher encounter rates. If you have a Deoxys transferred from any Gen 3 game, you can actually change its form by interacting with the meteorites in Veilstone City. If you haven't had enough of a Masuda-related Easter eggs, well, listen to this one. Masuda's birthday actually is an interesting one. See, on January 12th, there's yet another little secret feature that makes your eggs hatch faster. The steps needed to hatch eggs are reduced by 10%, and this Easter egg has become, just kind of a recent discovery that people have been using to their advantage as recently as 2020. Did you guys know that Rotom was actually treated like a legendary in Gen 4? While it's regular Pokemon these days, in Gen 4 you had to set your time between 8 p.m. and 4 a.m. and then head to the old Chateau. There you had to speak to the television in order to encounter Rotom, kind of just an event Pokemon. And it's the only way to obtain it in these games except for trading, and upon encountering it, you'll realize that the encounter theme for the legendaries is being played while you're there. Let's talk about the contest masters. Besides Jasmine, there's actually 2 other contest masters who are able to make your life harder in the highest difficulty contests, that being Fantina and your own mother, which are pretty cool little details. Did you guys know that the game files have a typeless type plate listed, which is unobtainable outside of cheating? Now, Arceus actually has a unique design for equipping this plate, ultimately leading it to sort of turn typeless. It's unclear as to whether or not it was planned to be obtainable or to erase all of Arceus' weaknesses at some point, which would have made it essentially broken, but yeah, I don't know why it's in there and why they didn't use it. There are some great daily and weekly events inside of Diamond, Pearl, Platinum. There is, of course, Swarms. There's also the Lottery, the daily trainer battles in Jubileaf TV. Floroma Town's berries can also be found. Valor Lakefront restaurant battles are also there. The daily ribbons in SunnyshoreCity, as well as for weekly, you have every Friday Drifloon at the, of course, Valley Windworks. There's the Trophy Garden and rival battles on weekends. So there's a lot of really cool events specifically that can be done in these games. Ribbon Society. Now, to get into it, you need to have a bazillion ribbons. Not really, but you have to have an incredible amount of them. After that, you can buy a stupidly expensive ribbons for max money and get a daily massage to boost the affection of your Pokemon for friendship evolutions in case you want that. But yeah, it's kind of a weird one, but the Ribbon Society, it exists if you ever take the time to do it. Did you guys know that the actual pathway, like the gravel road inside of Twin Leaf Town, is the kanji Japanese symbol for Earth, which is kind of cool. It lets you basically just kind of look at it in an interesting way, and I'm gonna leave it up for your interpretation. Maybe it's a reminder to stay grounded or something. The significance of the 4 lakes between basically the physical, spiritual, emotional, and paranormal, and then grounded. I don't know, maybe that's what it's supposed to represent. Who knows? In Pokemon Diamond and Pokemon Pearl, during the gym battles against Fantina, she will say something interesting. Never give up, never surrender. This is a catchphrase from the 1999 science fiction comedy movie Galaxy Quest. Did you guys know that you can actually teach Ditto essentially any move in Diamond and Pearl? It's called the Ditto Rage Glitch, and there's a whole explanation by C. Willy, which I think you guys should definitely check out if you want to understand how it works. And that's going to be it for today's video, guys. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.